Have you ever watched an anime and noticed something strange in common? For whatever reason, it seems that there is always this red flower that appears in shows like Demon Slayer, Tokyo Ghoul, and The Promised Neverland. So, why is this flower in every anime and manga? But first of all, what is this flower? In English, it is known as the red spider lily, and in Japan, it is most commonly referred to as a Higanbana, which translates to flower from the other side or shore. But there are actually close to 1,000 different names for this flower across Japan, with some of these translating to titles like poisonous flower, corpse flower, abandoned child flower, and hell flower. So it's obvious that this flower is not seen in the greatest light. And as to why this is, one must look at what this flower means to Japan. But first, a little about the flower itself. The red spider lily is not native to Japan, and it originally comes from China, Korea, and Nepal. However, only the female variant of the flower was brought over to Japan, which means that the flower cannot reproduce via pollen like most other flowers in the country. So, the only places that these flowers could grow are in places that people planted them. The red spider lily also contains some poison in its bulbs, flowers, stems, and leaves. If a human eats it, they may get diarrhea and vomiting, and in severe cases, they may even be paralyzed and die. Because of this poisonousness, farmers began planting these flowers around the rice fields to protect them from mice, insects, moles, and weasels. But the reason why these flowers actually work to protect these farms is because the flowers repel earthworms, and thus carnivores like mice and moles have no reason to go close to the farm. A small side note, but the red spider lily, despite being very poisonous, can actually be eaten if prepared properly. Please don't try this at home, but by soaking the flowers and changing the water multiple times, parts of the flower can be eaten. This was done mainly during times of famine because of the high risk of poisoning. And again, another negative connotation for this flower. Now, the flower's poison wasn't just used to protect farms from pests, but also graves. In ancient Japan, most bodies were buried directly into the ground, and thus their graves would be surrounded by the red spider lily in order to stop pests like mice and moles from disturbing the bodies of those who passed away. Even as cremation became the most common burial method, the red spider lily continued to be planted around graves. This association with death can be seen in the flower's most common name, the Higanbana, with bana meaning flower and higan meaning other side or shore, with the flower's bright colors said to guide souls to the afterlife. Not going into details as to not spoil anything, but this specific association with death is why the red spider lily appears in Demon Slayer, The Promised Neverland, and Tokyo Ghoul. In the example of Tokyo Ghoul specifically, the white carnation flower symbolizes innocence and pure love. As the flower gets tainted by blood, the flower transforms into a red spider lily, being a metaphor for the death of someone's former self. Again, this flower is unable to produce naturally, so they can only grow in places where someone has planted them. Thus, for the average person in Japan, the times they most see red spider lilies are at places associated with death. Despite this, in ancient Japan the flower was seen in a positive light, mostly because it protected farms and graves from pests. But as time passed, the flower started having more sinister associations. A few other superstitions involving this flower includes one that claims if you bring a red spider lily into your home, your house will catch fire. Another comes from how the flower blooms in a way that the blossoms and leaves never meet or touch. This is why in places like China, Korea, and Japan, the red spider lily is also seen as a symbol of separation, as it is said that the red spider lily blooms along the paths of departing lovers. Again, not going into details as to not spoil anything, but this association with separation is why the red spider lily appears in Madoka Magica on a certain witch's head, on a witch who is seemingly cursed and unable to ever reunite with a specific someone. But the flower is not only associated with death and destruction. Another name of this flower is the manjushage, or white spider lily, and this name usually refers to the white variant. Manjushage means the flower blooming in heaven in Sanskrit. And these white flowers are sometimes seen at temples or gardens across Japan because in Buddhism, this flower is said to have the power to remove the evil karma of those who see it, and it is also said to be the soft, white flower that blooms in heaven. But to conclude, the reason why so many anime and manga have this red spider lily is because of the flower's association with death. This flower appears from animes ranging from Tohoho to Inuyasha to Hellgirl, and manga like Higanbana no Sakuyoho ni, which is from the same author as Higurashi and revolves around its main character, Higanbana. As for why, well, in all of these examples, the red spider lily appears for the same reason time and time again. In ancient times, the red spider lily was well liked in Japan, mostly because it helped protect farms and graves from pests. But as time passed, the flower became associated with death, destruction, and the separation of lovers. And it is for this reason that the Higanbana is so often seen in anime, manga, and all other forms of Japanese media. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching.